Hi, my name is Nanette Patino, and I am a Spanish teacher um, teaching ninth through 12th grade, level 3 Spanish. And so this is my second video submission. I was waiting to do this reflection with some feedback from the previous, um, but I think I'm just going to do it now. There's some observations that I've made, and I just wanted to share them because I know that I'm growing from them. And um, then, if there's anything else that I need to do, I'll make those adjustments, hopefully, for my third video. So I'm going to just start by saying that the three growth goals that I used, or well, that I determined to focus on was element 7, processing content. The second one was using structured practice sessions. And the third one was, oh, and that was element 9, I'm sorry, element 9, using structured practice sessions. And the third goal was element 28, which is presenting unusual information. The reason why I decided to use the first two, which is element 7, processing content, was because I used this focus for my first video, and we were working on the last unit of instruction, and so that's something that I wanted to focus on. The goal was for the students to be able to learn information from the global challenges unit and be able to not only understand what these challenges were, but to be able to understand them in Spanish, have an opinion about it, reflect on it, make comparisons to what they know personally, addresses a couple of these particular elements, and then I wanted for them to be able to explain what they learned in Spanish. Secondly, the element 9, using structured practice, I decided to use so that the students would have engaging activities and ask each other questions based on their language skills that at this point are in a range. Some of them are more advanced than others, but all of the students need to continue growing in their understanding of Spanish. And so their fluency is what I wanted to focus on as they did the structured practice. And then the third one was element 28, which is presenting unusual information. And I used the gallery walk, and I used visual literacy to present information on one of the topics of global challenges, which was war, that we had already had previous information on. And so I was trying to solidify what the students already understood as part of their learning. Okay, and so the next thing that I wanted to talk about was my self-scoring template. So for video 2, there were a couple of things that I noticed. So overall, the strengths that I had were in direct instructions, practice and deepening lessons, and engaging content. And some of the areas that I want to show improvement in, I have highlighted on the sheet. So I don't know if you can see that all, but that's what I did. And so areas in strategies that appear in all types of lessons, previewing the new content was not one of the strong suits in this video, and using homework, I didn't address. I also did not use academic games or provide students to talk about themselves because I didn't see that there was a connection to that in our um, focus lesson. Also, motivating and inspiring students. Um, I don't know, maybe if I thought about doing it in a different way, but I put a zero because I didn't think that I addressed that in the video, as well as building relationships where perhaps I did use maybe one or two um, verbal or nonverbal behaviors, um, but I didn't think that I successfully did any of those things, or it wasn't present in the video. Now, um, for providing scales, right? And communicating clear goals. I did communicate what I wanted for the students to do, but I didn't use a scale for it. And so I wrote a note about it here. Uh, Tracking student progress. Um, I put it at a two because I did it as I walked around the class, but perhaps this particular element could be tied into helping students record information in that conversation. But in terms of having a rubric that I did, it's not evident in this particular video. Um, as I would have had in another video. So I'm going to be looking at improving that particular area in my third video. Um, I did do informal assessments of the whole class, um, but I think that the students really didn't respond to me, so perhaps my questioning could have been a little better. We'll see. Formal assessment. I did a formal assessment when I was speaking independently to the teams of students, although in the video it wasn't too clear. So that's questionable on your part in terms of what you see or what you hear. Sorry. Um, in the content area, conducting direct instruction in the lessons. Chunking was evident because I continued to talk about what we had done previously. And I connected the vocabulary, which is sort of like the focus for this video, as I tie it into using that vocabulary in a meaningful way, doing the gallery walk where the kids have to have that conversation about what they are looking at in the images. They were recording. I didn't put myself three. I thought that perhaps I was at a developing, because in this particular video, I didn't use a T chart like I would have in another. I used a note, so it was just like a snapshot of what the student thought was important for them to remember when they did their analyzing in a short summary form after they did the walkthrough. So I helped students look at some similarities. I didn't really look at too many differences in this particular video lesson. And in the example where I think it was 11, in image 11, it was grain, and it was in a hand, and we were talking about what that could mean. And so some of the students had some different kinds of ideas. Some of them were saying that there was fruit, some of them were saying that they needed food, right? So I was just trying to give them a context. If we're talking about war, how does this image of the hand looking at this food really, connects in terms of like rationing food, when you don't have enough? We're talking about famine, which in Spanish is hambruna. So I wanted for them to connect it. That was a little bit of a conversational piece with the students as they walk through the class there. For conducting knowledge application lessons, I thought that the lesson was um, complex because it allowed them to, well, not allowed them, it encouraged them to sort of think on their feet. They didn't have anything prior to that. I wanted for them to have like a cold shot of what this image was instead of setting it up a little bit so that they had opportunity to have conversations and really be thoughtful. Um, I gave them the sentence frames so that it would help those that needed it. But my goal was to see how they will be able to express themselves, giving that the prior lessons had lots of conversation about this particular topic. And so I wanted for them to sort of deepen that understanding by the images that I had presented around the gallery walk. Uh, in terms of providing resources and guidance, well, the images are the resources, and I also referred to using the matrix that we had from previous lessons. So that was my connecting resource. And for element 14, generating and defending claims, I put a one. Perhaps I could have taken that and done a little step further, but that's not going to be very evident in the video. And plus, the kids, I guess they were nervous, or just having them do the video didn't really give them a chance to share what they would normally do. This is like a class that shares their ideas, and they were a little more timid than normal. So that conversational piece is not really evident. So I don't think that the video is as good as it could be, but it gives me an opportunity to see how or what I should do to get the kids talking a little bit more, at least for now. Previewing new content. Um, I didn't really preview any new content. I was sort of like just trying to deepen what the students had listened to before. I think, and the only new content was there was one or two new words that I brought in, like escasez was one of them, and I can't remember the other one right now. Um, but that's something that I would have to work on for the following video. I also didn't have anything for using homework because this was a class activity and I was not giving them any homework. But if I would have given them, perhaps it would be to rewrite and revisit their short summaries, right? To think of more specific examples and use the vocabulary a little bit more purposefully, that I can do for next time as well. Um, Helping students elaborate new information. I think I did that when we were doing, like the recapping afterwards. I think I talked more than I should have, and the kids needed to have more input there. Organizing students to interact. We did the pairs, we did the second pair, we did the gallery walk. So I think that was good. Using engagement in the engagement strategies. I know that one of my students, she was sort of like focused on the computer, but she was looking at notes. I noticed later, and so I came and I approached her, and she responded to me, which was one of the students that were in the front the young lady that was there. So I think that would make a connection there. Managing the response rates. I did give students an opportunity to think about the responses before I ask someone else or even elicit the response again or just provide it another follow-up question. So I want to continue working on that area again, even though I think it was fine using physical movement. I had the kids, you know, walking around the classrooms. That was pretty good. Maintaining a lively pace. I also think that I was successful in that area. Demonstrating intensity and enthusiasm. I don't know if I did or if I didn't, I'm going to be honest. Um, the kids were doing what they needed to do and they were having conversations, and we even threw in a joke there. So I wonder if that would meet that expectation. Presenting unusual information or intriguing information. I thought that um, the the use of images that were protesting or that had destruction based on, you know, the impacts of war, they were interesting in of itself, and I saw many of the students really analyzing the images. Some of them were able to make a connection to another one that they saw. Some of them I had to elicit some kind of thoughtful uh, identification of one or two things, and then, you know, that helped them to connect one or two of the other images to one that they were looking at. um, Using friendly conversation, I didn't really do much there. I didn't use academic games in this video either. So I would say I would need to try to incorporate an academic game within the next video, and motivating and inspiring students. I could have done something different, so I'm going to be more specific and targeted in my planning for the next one. For implementing rules and procedures, I thought that establishing and maintaining classroom rules and procedures were evident. Organizing of the physical space, we had a good space for the kids to walk around. Demonstrating witness, right? When I asked the kids, you know, some questions and waited for them. And I came around and asked a little bit more probing questions to the pairs. So I thought that that was demonstrating with itness, and be just consistent with what I wanted for the students to sort of really glean from all of the visuals that I have presented. Applying consequences of lack of adherence. Um, I didn't even think I needed the consequences, but I moved closer to students, you know, that I needed to uh, get their attention to, and so I thought that was fine. For building relationships in the video, you're really perhaps not going to see using the verbal and nonverbal affections, but I did say, you know, good job, or, you know, okay, or I see what you're saying. Um, so something to work on. Understanding students' interest in the background. Um, I'm not sure about that one. I'll have to think a little bit more deeper understanding. I don't really think in this video it lent itself to addressing understanding my students' interest. So I'll have to revisit that. And for communicating high expectations, I did have the students understand that they needed to be engaged and to be participating, and that's why I put them into partnerships instead of groups of four, which would have been a little bit more conversation, but it would have been just a little easier for one to be more quiet than if it's just two. And so that was a choice that I made for them. Asking in-depth questions for reluctant learners. I really didn't think I had a reluctant learner. Just something that I didn't address, and probing incorrect answers. And so I didn't really have that in the video. So perhaps those are things that I will need to look at. I did watch the video again, and I asked my students were watching it along with me, and so I asked them um, what they thought. Right, just a little feedback. In a way, I was a little disappointed with the outcome of the video, but sometimes that's just the way things really are. Sometimes you don't have the kind of enthusiasm that you would have, or maybe I prepped them and told them we're gonna have a video, and maybe that just threw them off. I could have just been a little bit more spontaneous with that. But I found that the task itself was good, and the kids did have conversation that was meaningful. It looked long in the video because I talked to every group, which is what I always do. Um, but I guess I don't know. It was sort of like dragging. A student said that it was a little bit boring. Another student said it was just hard to hear what the other students were saying, and so then I would say that that's an error on my part, where I should have moved the video to, or the camera, the computer, to be closer to the actual kids, so that it would be a little bit easier for them to be heard. So those are things that I'm going to be looking for and be more conscious of. Um, I think that the kids were successful with looking at the images. The gallery book is something that I've used before, um, but I don't know, maybe because they were in the partnerships, it was just something different. I don't know. It could have been a couple of different variables that can have made the kids feel like it was a little bit boring. But they did learn um, how to use the vocabulary, which is what I wanted them to do, to use the vocabulary that we had used, that we had learned in prior lessons. And I think that um, just reviewing some of the self-scoring for this video um, helps me to identify the areas that I want to continue to work in, and maybe in the third video I will address those more intently, and do a little bit more research, maybe just to see how I can go about improving that instruction for my students. Um, and so, and with that being said, I think there's always, good things and bad things that we are analyzing, right? Strengths and areas of growth. And I think that um, maybe I could have used less pictures to have the kids talking more, or maybe I could have grouped the pictures in a different way so that we could have had some more conversation in terms of doing a compare and contrast. Um, but um, I think overall, I uh, I know what I'm going to work on next. So I'm looking forward to that. Um, and I hope that with some feedback from you, that would help me be more successful in my next lesson delivery. Thank you so much.